So I have the pleasure of talking to Spencer of Periphery outside of, what is it, Royal Oak Music Theater?
I think so, yeah, that's it.
I was going to say, this isn't my home turf, so I have to be like, what the fuck venue is this? I got to be like you looking at
We're on the same page.
Laminate. But your guys' latest record, Hail Stand, just came out a week ago, debuting number 9 on the Billboard charts. How does it feel, your first officially big release like this, going so big out the gate?
We're still kind of shocked, like we just got that information yesterday, and obviously we were posting it everywhere, like just flexing everywhere online. Not because we're like trying to brag or anything. We're just like, man, taking this independent, having our own label, and it's doing this successful. Our brand is growing and everything. It's not like it got stunted by not having a label or anything behind it, and we're all just really still kind of trying to process it. So it's really, really awesome though, obviously.
What I kind of wondered, because obviously some of the songs started to leak, so you guys put out the record yourselves on YouTube, which there's a couple of things about that I thought were interesting, but I'll focus on the first thing, which is, was it nice not having to go through, and maybe you did, having to go through a chain of command to be able just to do that because it is your release?
We do. But at the end of the day, we're the ones, calling the shots. Like, we could have somebody advising us being like, well, hey, wait till Monday, or this or that. But if we're like, as a band unanimously, hey, like, this shit's going to be out there, let's put it out. And we already had the tracks uploaded to YouTube, like, as a preemptive thing. We're like, okay, if we're selling these physical copies today, tomorrow they're going to hit online. Like, somebody that buys it is going to leak it.
Right.
So we just had them on deck as private links. And, as soon as we started seeing leaks, we just told our manager, we're like, tell the person you need to tell to make those links live. And then that was it.
What I thought was interesting, and I'm not trying to get into the band's financials about it, but what I thought was interesting is the fact that putting it out that way still sort of is allowing you to monetize the views and capture the views and so forth, and get those on your channel and like I said, monetize that. And I wondered if potentially that was another avenue or thought process of, if this does happen, we can do this and at least capture everything for ourselves before like some other random Joe Blow gets their stuff and makes money off of your work.
Yeah, and they wouldn't make money off it because obviously that's illegal. Like, if they were, monetizing the videos and on a leak or something like that, that's going to get taken down immediately. It'll get flagged and taken down. It probably wouldn't even be up for an hour before that happened. But that definitely, that was in the thought process. It was like, well, if this is going to leak and views are going to go somewhere, we may as well, try and drive that to our channel for, publicity for us, and also like some of the streaming money as well. Even though, YouTube royalties, it's like negligible for a band. It's not that much money, but
right.
Better than nothing. Better than those views going somewhere else.
Absolutely. Did you read any of the comments when you guys put it out?
Yeah. I'm not the kind of person that like obsesses over comments, or like anytime we put something out, like goes and like reads every comment. But I was just, I was curious this time around to see, because it's such a different record. It's kind of like a departure from what we've done in the past, and I was just curious to see how our fans would react to it. And I've been really, really pleasantly surprised at how positive it's been so far, at least.
Yeah. So speaking to fans and the record itself, like I kind of preemptively said before we started, I'm going to get a little weird with this. What I like to do is kind of take a deeper dive, knowing that this is the interview I'm doing. I had nothing, so I had about a week or so to prepare for this. And either I went way too far down a rabbit hole that doesn't exist, or I'm catching things that I don't see other people making the correlations to necessarily, at least not very publicly. So with that being said, you guys are one of the few bands that I've noticed where all of your offshoot bands, whether they be solo projects, whatever, basically ends up coming back some way, shape, or form into the main Periphery records. Starting with the Bulb demos. I'm sure you've at least had to have heard about that in some interviews or whatever.
Oh, yeah, Bulb basically is Periphery. It's like, all these songs that Misha has from back in the day, back when it was just him, and
right.
Not a whole band. And those are basically like kind of like in the reserve tank for us. It's anything that we want to use from any of his old stuff gets put into Periphery. So you can kind of think of it as like a handmade type thing.
So something that I kind of had wondered multifacetedly was, do you try maybe intermittently to sprinkle them into every record as kind of like an Easter egg for longtime fans that have been around?
I don't think it's ever a deliberate thing like that. And also, like, as weird as it sounds, we're never thinking like, oh, the fans or this group of people is going to like this, so let's do that. It's always kind of like what's going to serve the record best for us, and what's going to make it a good record for us. We're like first and foremost.
I was surprised to see Sentient Glow on this new record, given the fact that it existed in a different incarnation on the Haunted Shores record.
There have been like 3 different incarnations of it now, like an instrumental one, Chris Barretto, and then now with me.
It made me wonder, I would assume, being as tight as you guys all seem to be musically, that you probably would have heard that song with Chris on the vocals and so forth. Did that inspire any... I didn't notice any obvious melodies or any like kind of vocal ideas that match from one to the other, but I always think it's interesting, and you don't see it a whole lot like that, where there's someone else completely doing the song as it exists, and then another vocalist getting to go over and completely redo it their way.
And that's tough, man. That's really hard when you hear something a certain way and you're used to hearing it that way, to completely just wipe that out of your mind and try and do something completely different. But the unique thing about that situation was that me and Mark over here were we were friends, and we talked online before I was in Periphery, before he was in Periphery, and I actually ended up doing a version of Sentient Glow before Chris's version came out that the world hadn't heard yet, and this is like 2008 2009, around there somewhere, and that version is what got used for this. So that song with my vocals on it has been around since like the 2009 era, which is where we just re-recorded it, obviously.
I was going to say, did anything change drastically from that demo to now?
No, not really. Just kind of like the character and like the quality of the recording and all that. But the parts pretty much stayed the same.
Interesting. It's just like I said, one of those things where you don't see many songs exist musically almost identically between having 2 vocalists on them, but having such a just stark difference between what each of the vocalists does, which I think is kind of the interesting thing about music when you're given just a blank slate to create, and I think kind of speaks to the uniqueness of both you and Chris. Kind of speaking to some of the other carryovers I've noticed, it seems that every other record, lyrically, kind of flirts with this kind of dark and light on either one. So it seems like, with P1, there's like Icarus Lives, Juggernaut, kind of the references to like satanic rituals and imagery and so forth. And it kind of even lyrically carried over onto what you were doing with Ender.
Yeah, so the Ender record it's a concept record, but not in the way that it tells a story. And I deliberately put the record out around Halloween, the year it came out, because it was like every single song has something to do with something like supernatural and otherworldly type experience. But yeah, the songs don't necessarily tie in lyrically to each other. There's like some motifs that weave in and out of songs and stuff like that.
Right. Is it I guess what I was going more for, is it a conscious thing where every other record kind of plays on these light and dark themes?
No, not necessarily. I think everything that were, aside from Juggernaut was a very deliberate kind of like, we went in knowing exactly what it was going to be, and all the other records we've done and the stuff I've done on the side, out of Periphery, has always just kind of been like a track by track thing and just vibing in the moment, not really having like a broad overview before I go into it.
Something, and didn't have a way to write this, so forgive the meandering of trying to find the question exactly, but listening to the Nik Mystery stuff, and like I said, kind of listening to what everyone else does, it seems like there is instances, whether it be portions of songs put back into Periphery and then in the main band. Nik Mystery stuff, I don't necessarily really hear those kinds of songs represented in much of the Periphery stuff at all. So it kind of made me wonder, is there going to maybe be more of that kind of... and I was trying to put my finger on it today as I was listening to it on the way up. I was like, kind of reminds me of like 80s like synth pop, but like it also kind of has, like it feels, honestly, it kind of feels like you could put it over a lot of the 80s classic movies. Like,
that's awesome.
It kind of fits, it sounds more like a soundtrack. Like you could put like the guitar tone over it, kind of reminding me of like wacky 80s like rom-coms and so forth.
That's
but then
exactly
also has,
what we were going for,
like weird sciencey type stuff. Like you could expect it across a multi-genre movies, and so it just kind of made me wonder if there will ever be any Nik Mystery style stuff in Periphery eventually.
I mean, maybe. We don't really set any rules for ourselves. You know, if all of us write a song and we like it and it doesn't sound anything like Periphery, we're still going to make it a Periphery song because we like it. You know, that's like the rule at the end of the day for us. So, I mean, we don't have anything really planned like that, but maybe down the road if it feels right.
Something, when prepping for this, I have constantly made references to a couple of friends that knew I was doing this, that I feel this weird weight of doing this interview because of what the band means to all of your fans, means to the music scene, kind of for heavy music. I would put you guys alongside like the Meshuggahs and the Gojiras, that when you do something, it's not like people are just like, oh, there's that new record. It's kind of a movement, a time, like this, a stamp, where it's like, now the benchmark has been set, this is what everyone aspires to do in the music, this scene, heavily in the music realm. And as such, it probably doesn't feel that way for you, but it does make me wonder if maybe collectively you guys realize that there is this sense of like, we have to keep outdoing ourselves at all.
Yeah, and I think that's more so just for ourselves and not for like the way people look at us, or like, hey, we can't let people down. It's like, we don't want to put out something that's not as good as the last thing we put out, because like, you know, you want to push yourself as a musician, you want to push yourself as a writer. And I know for me, like, I'm constantly trying to one up myself for myself and write the best things that we can write, you know.
What is something, you know, with Ender kind of being its thing and Nik Mystery kind of being what it is, and obviously what you do in Periphery, is there something you haven't touched yet that you are looking forward to experimenting with musically?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I know I've been talking to Misha lately and about P4 and how it turned out and how dark it was and how heavy it was, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And I can't speak for everyone else in the band, but I think, you know, they're all kind of on the same page. I told Misha I want to go darker for the next one, and maybe not, you know, heavier per se, but like all the melodic aspects, I want to go darker and weirder, because I had a lot of fun doing that this time around.
Something I noticed in watching that documentary and watching a few of the other ones that you guys have put out is the fact that you're really hands-on with where melodies go, like maybe a guitar melody or just melodies in general. You'll find the one that you like, pull it out, try to do something vocally in that spot, and it kind of makes me wonder, and it's probably just a very simple answer, but does having that freedom, does it ever get overwhelming?
No, not necessarily, because we never have like a real deadline, or anymore at least. So it's like, I don't know. You can try so many different things, and then you have time to sit on it, and there's no pressure at all. You know, and this time around, Misha wrote some of the vocals with me. You know, we would just get together, hanging out, no pressure, and just be humming and scatting scream patterns into a microphone, and we would do this for hours, and then be like, oh, you know, okay, well, let's take a break for a day, and then go back and try and interpret it into real singing and real screaming and see what sticks.
Obviously, the record itself, Hail Stan, I thought was very fun and tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a play off of Hail Satan. But then it kind of made me wonder, and unfortunately I don't remember who it was with. Someone did say, to me it represents this, but it could represent a million other things to all of you.
Absolutely. Like, I think that may have been me that said that. Okay. And it was like, the way I look at it is, we took a year and a half off from touring and put all this time and effort into writing this record. It's like, I've never been so stoked with something musically that I've ever done in my life. And then it's like a reminder for me that you should just never take yourself too seriously. It's like, you could spend all this time, like a year and a half of your life, like that's a good chunk of your life, and be proud of something, and then just go, okay, I don't give a fuck. Hail Stan, dude. No significant meaning whatsoever.
It was just kind of weird, because it's like I said, with the significance it seems that a lot of others place on your band, it kind of made me wonder if it's like a tongue-in-cheek, like, all right, well, hey, like kind of making fun of the people who stand you guys or
And it's really the only thing that our band could agree upon. I think there were probably a couple hundred different titles we went through that nobody could really, not everybody was on the same page, you know?
I'm totally going to blank on this, and I meant to write it down, but I did see at one point in the documentary, it was blurred out a couple of times, but I noticed at one point when they were tracking guitars in it, that it looked like on the dry erase board it was P4 and then the title, which was blurred out, and then eventually it was just P4, the Smile, whatever the actual song ended up being.
Oh yeah, it's only Smiles.
Yeah.
I think it was at one point on the whiteboard, Eat Butts, Beat Guts, if I'm not mistaken.
So
that was a personal favorite.
Yeah, I would have.
So I was going to say that was at one point the working title, sort of.
I mean, we would have never slapped that. I mean, that's just vulgar and just.
Well, no, not that. The one that ended up becoming a song title itself.
Oh yeah, I think at one point we were talking about making that the title, right? It's only Smiles.
There was also talking shit on something. Talking shit.
I don't remember.
It was interesting, like growing, like, being in my mid-30s myself, it's like I remember, watching a lot of, like, the Pantera home videos and so forth, and them having to blur a lot of shit out, and it becomes one of those things where you get really excited to try to figure out what the blurred out thing is, and you can figure that out. And so when I noticed that, I was like, oh, they keep blurring out that board, like, I don't know why.
Just don't want our parents to see that.
Yeah, you don't want everything flying out there on the internet.
It was, I don't know, I just thought it was amusing. So I was wondering how close it was to being the song title, since it seemed to be one of the few that you could actually read.
But I'm not exaggerating when I say like 100 to 200 different titles got tossed around for this record.
Well, I mean,
before we stuck with something.
What are some that didn't get used that you were especially proud of? Or are you going to potentially use them so you don't want to say them?
Mark, do you remember some that were like really good, like forerunners for this?
Man, Periphery 4, Shrek 2.
Yeah. The Land P4 Time.
The Land P4 Time.
That was a good one.
P4
my favorite. I was really gunning for this was Periphery 4 Skin.
Oh.
Like.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Skin.
Oh yeah, I get it.
And then having like a peach covered front and just like skin color, like looking all serious, and it's foreskin. So good.
I guess that's kind of the interesting thing in the day and age now, where you guys you're basically your own bosses more or less on the label. Is it a thing where? Is it hard to rein yourselves in where you could just be like, we could put out a record called, Foreskin, and who's going to stop us?
We could, but we love our manager and we don't want him to hate us more than he already does. So, we play ball with him a little bit. it was already like pulling teeth to get him to go along with the Hail Stand title. So
I did love the little Baphomet in the circles.
It just adds even more just like tongue in cheekness to it,
Are you working on any more Nik Mystery stuff?
Yeah, I'm working on a full length with Mike and Yuka right now. We're pretty far into it, to be honest, and we're recording it all ourselves. And we'll figure out everything once all the songs are done being recorded, and figure out when it's going to come out, how it's going to come out. But definitely a good chunk of material being worked on right now.
It would seem collectively any of you could be a part of this, but is movie scoring something you would be interested in doing?
I don't know much about it. I think if any of us were to do it, it would probably be Misha, since he's a wizard when it comes to programming orchestral sections and making things feel like you could close your eyes when you listen to some of his orchestral pieces and it feels like a movie trailer, like you're seeing a movie trailer. So for me, I really don't know. I would love to, take a crack at it at some point, but I really don't know anything about it.
It was interesting. I just saw this movie. It's called I'm Just Fucking With You. And Chino apparently did the score for it. Really? Which is just
That's
weird.
Awesome. I know Mike Patton does a lot of movie scoring as well. Like he did Place Beyond the Pines? He did that. And then Trent Reznor, he scores some stuff to him and Atticus Ross.
He does a lot of not Lynch, but Fincher's. But it's just like one of those things where I feel like I said, kind of with as diverse as you are, like especially with Nik Mystery, like someone tapping you and being like, guys want to fucking score the soundtrack?
I mean, that would be really cool to try. Yeah, maybe. We'll see down the road.
Seems like you guys are busy enough as it is. Kind of, and just, I have no more questions prepared, so we'll just kind of off the cuff this. But, I think it's interesting how very tongue-in-cheek the band has always been, and very internet friendly, for lack of a better word. What, in the day and age where a lot of people have a pedestal now to voice their opinions and so forth, is it hard sometimes with as much art and as much things as you guys create individually and as a collective? Is it hard when people don't give it the fair shake? Maybe like a Nik Mystery thing where it's like, well, this isn't Periphery, so I don't like it.
It's fine, man. Like, at the end of the day, we're all making music for ourselves, like I said, and you can like it or you can not like it. It doesn't change the fact that we're still having fun making it and enjoying doing it, you know? And if people like it, that's just the icing on the cake for us, to be honest. And that's always the way we've looked at it. And with that way, you know, you can't be too disappointed. You know, if you put something out and you're happy with it, I mean, you really can't ask for that much more.
This is another one I was trying to work my way through. With Bulb kind of being the epicenter of the starting point, I should say, of everything to where it now has become what Periphery is, it always kind of seems like, and maybe this is me, again, reading too much into it, it seems like everything has kind of been plotted. Like, there's kind of a grand idea of where the band wants to go, themes that want to be expressed and so forth, and some of the music comes from so far ago. Is there stuff that you guys have been writing all along the way that are basically the new Bulb demos that just haven't been used, or is what's out there kind of what is out there?
Yeah. There's never really a plan. You know, we could go into this next record and use 5 tracks from 2005 maybe, or we could go in and just write something completely new for the whole record. It's there's never a plan. It's just always kind of like, let's get together at the beginning of these sessions and figure out which demos that we want to work with, and we'll have like a list of like 30 or 40, and we'll listen through them. Everybody will listen through and then pick their top favorites out of them. And sometimes only a couple old demos will make it on a record, and then other times it could be a bunch.
Totally random shit. Have you seen Us?
Yes.
Okay. So, most people I've asked have not seen it, so I don't really get to talk with it. So, potential spoiler alerts now. What did you think of it, and how many times have you seen it at this point?
I saw it once, and we all saw it as a band. I think it was probably the first day off on this tour we had, right? Yeah, we went late at night after dinner and watched it as a band, and it was awesome. I really thought, I don't know, Jordan Peele has a way of bringing you into, capturing you, bringing you into the thriller, making you feel like you're there. Like, I feel like that's a very hard thing to do nowadays, because everything in the thriller and horror genre has just been done over and over, and everything's so predictable. And he comes in with these plots that just completely smack your head, like twist your head around.
Now, I saw it very similarly to you, where I had a couple of friends with me. Did you guys have the same experience where you all noticed completely different things from each other?
I don't know. We didn't really talk about it too much in depth.
Really?
After. We were just like, wow, that was fucking awesome.
Man, we sat in the lobby for probably a good 45 minutes just being like, did you notice, like, the Black Flag t-shirt, like, the one person had theirs?
Oh, yeah.
There
were a couple Black Flag. There was, like, a poster and then a shirt and, some other things. Yeah.
And it was just, like, little things that we all didn't notice that the other ones did, and then it's like, oh, fuck, I didn't notice that.
I also thought that Tim Heidecker was in it.
Yeah, and, what was interesting is someone had made the comment, and a friend of mine sent me a Reddit link after they saw it, and because I was like, yeah, I got to keep talking about this to someone, because I keep thinking of things, and then it makes me think of what it means in a bigger scale to the movie. And something I didn't notice, but when someone explained this in the Reddit thread, I was like, holy shit. It was, your lower version basically is like how you are. So like Tim was always like the drunk asshole. So when the lower version, or the underneath version or whatever, took over, he was the drunk asshole even more so.
Oh,
to
yeah.
the nth level.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But then I had kind of wondered too, because like his wife, I was like, well, I kind of figured it's the person that is subdued in all of us that we don't want to let out. That's what I thought it was, because his wife, had all like the nose job. She was talking about the nose job in the beginning, and even the underground one was like worried about her appearance.
Putting on makeup for the first time, and like, that's what she was.
And so it kind of made me like
on.
That was what I kept coming to, is I was like, I feel like it's those people not necessarily living the life we did without having all the things that we have, but it's who we are inside.
That's interesting.
And all of our insecurities actually coming out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting way of looking at it. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've been take deep dives on stuff, and then I just kind of like sit there and get lost inside of itself. Super
cool movie though, and I can't wait for him to put out more stuff.
Well, he's got that. I know he's producing it, I guess, with the Twilight Zone stuff.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
How long do you think South Park can go?
Oh, dude, they just get better. They get better with age, and I hope it just keeps going. I hope by the time I die, there are still South Park episodes being made.
It's weird to me that we live in a society, like, because I remember between South Park, between Family Guy, and a lot of these shows, not Futurama, but American Dad and a few of those others, like, they had to be on at 10 p.m. or later because they didn't want kids seeing them. Now, like, almost all of them air, right after school's done.
Yeah, it's also like, I think it doesn't really matter much anymore because everybody's just using streaming services like, Netflix, Hulu to watch. Like, I don't even have cable or satellite or any of that at my house anymore. There's just no need to.
Something, this will be like my last question, kind of been winding down. Something I've been thinking about the last couple of days. I keep seeing sensationalized headline videos to get people to click on it. And it'll say like the new one I saw yesterday that kind of caught my attention was girl performs Post Malone cover on violin from that Spider-Man movie or whatever. So I click on it, and she's busking. People are paying her money. There's a huge crowd. But I'm looking at the instrumentation, and I'm like, that doesn't seem very complicated. Like, it sounds like the same 3 or 4 notes.
Yeah.
And it's not even like an AC/DC thing where it's about groove and being in a pocket and what you're not playing. That's kind of the thing that you should be latching on to. But as I was watching it, I was like, I don't feel like this is amazing. Are we kind of devaluing our vocabulary, and things that aren't amazing are becoming amazing? Because adversely, is it becoming a thing where people aren't willing to put forth all of the time and effort to become masterful at something because they want to show off and maybe have that viral moment?
I think that's definitely a thing that the internet's created, and social media more so than just the internet. I think with somebody being able to go and post what they're doing at any time of the day, whenever they want for free, it's like, yeah, somebody can get really mediocre at something and then go and, try and get some likes for it online instead of, back, I remember when I was a kid sitting in my room for fucking 10 hours straight trying to learn a song and get it down perfect, playing it on guitar, just like every little thing about it, like nailing it before I would even want to show like my friends or anything, It's kind of a weird thing.
Last question. Something we've become sticklers on here on the podcast, but I think is an interesting topic piece. You guys just put out a full length. You guys have put out a double record. You guys have put out EPs collectively and so forth. Where do you feel the music industry is leaning? Is it more single and EP based, or do you think fans still value the full, like having a full record?
I think it's circumstantial. I think for certain genres, the EP and even just singles, like if you put out a single before a tour, you get huge press and publicity off of it. In like the pop world and in the rap world, all that. But I think in like genres like ours, like in the progressive world, like fans like to have substance, and they really like to have that record and sit down with it and learn it inside and out and listen to it from start to finish and have that content, So I really think it depends on, the genre, really.
That was all my questions for you. Where can everyone find you and or the band, any of the bands, online?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're out on the road for another 4 days, or 3 days, I think, and come catch us while we're out here.
Pokemon. Thanks again, Spencer, for taking the time.
Yeah, no worries.